No Rest for the Wicked is one of those rare games that actually excited me upon seeing the gameplay trailer for the first time, you mind-blowing bastards. I don't like playing early access games, but had to try it out and thankfully key was provided by the publisher. Played early access for about 24 hours, so time to review it. Won't talk much about the story, as it depends a lot on the rest of the game how it's going to develop and conclude. So far it is alright, if not a bit too familiar. Basically dealing with some sort of plague as a member of Holy Church. What is more impressive is the way story is presented through artistic cutscenes and interesting characters. Every character, even the unimportant ones, have some kind of charisma and personality that is easily portrayed thanks to some of the best voice acting I've heard yet in games.
Even in their heaven. Surprised I recognize you, Serum.
Or so I've heard. Haven't had the time yet to, venture out there myself.
Hello? Are you looking for a place to live? Well, you can't come here, to me. All my properties are full. Thank you.
Usually games make additional effort for main characters, as it should be, but in No Rest voice acting is top tier for absolutely every character. I was blown away because I don't think I've seen such attention to voice acting for every character in any game ever. Overall, can't talk that much about the story yet, even though it piqued my interest. Gonna be interesting to see how it all wraps up. Let's switch to combat. It's top tier. Before talking about mechanics, I have to commend the brilliant hit impact design. This is what I'm talking about. Can't have good melee combat without some impact and weight behind strikes. No Rest does great job with stagger mechanic with each strike that also depends heavily on the weapon being used and the enemy armor. Thankfully there are also good backstab animations. Thank fuck for that. See, from software, it can be done at least well enough not to ruin the experience. As mentioned earlier, combat plays a lot like in From Software games. Movement, positioning and reach are crucial. Enemies have decent AI except when it comes to pathfinding, as they get stuck easily on carts, steps and sometimes even pebbles. Enemies react to player attacks in a natural way. Could be that some of it is input reading, but the way it is done it feels natural, which is very commendable. It's the dance of death, with each strike feeling like a success thanks to great combat feedback on both defense and offense. Defensive options are dodge, block and parry, but block doesn't negate all of the damage, which is an interesting choice. I haven't found a shield yet that blocks all the damage, so playing weapon and shield ends up as quite a peculiar experience. Little detail that makes the shield more effective than what it would seem on the first glance is how enemies stagger upon hitting the shield. That small window of opportunity to strike after block can be utilized strategically. Parry staggers enemies longer than block, but it is risky. Then again, in a game where shields do not block all of the damage, parry becomes a more viable option than usual. Combat animations are fantastic. For the most part it all makes sense, like time needed to complete the attack, dodge animation, shoulder charge, block, stagger. Major reason why combat feedback is so good are the animations. I would like to see more polish here to make it even more tight, because at times it seems too much distance is covered due to feet sliding across the floor while doing attacks with, in most cases, larger weapons. There is also no attack cancel, which is great because it adds another strategic layer to combat. No attack cancel can only work in games with tight combat and when battling 1, 2 or maximum 3 enemies, which is the case here. More polished distance covering with attacks, as mentioned earlier, would make no attack cancel even more strategic. Diversity of playstyles is fantastic. One of those games where you most likely won't stick with only 1 or 2 builds, but instead try every weapon just to see how different it feels. For example, I've played with 2 great hammers that had different attacks, and my approach had to change because one had slow initial attack and the other one had a fast one. Every weapon also feels quite satisfying due to fantastic combat feedback. There is also equipment encumbrance that affects playstyles drastically. cool addition is Shoulder Charge that is enabled with heavy encumbrance that can knock enemies down. Weapons that I can remember off the top of my head are regular swords, katana, great swords, great hammers, one-handed hammer types, axes, staves, spears, daggers and dual daggers. If wielding one-handed weapon offhand becomes available for shields and bows. Bows are a legitimate playstyle on their own, but serve great purpose even if used only sporadically. There is also a mage playstyle with staves that can cast spells, but I didn't test that yet. Doesn't interest me as much as melee, but it is great that mage playstyle is in the game too. Let's see in the end if devs decide to include more diverse mage styles in the full version. Would be interesting to see how a variety of mages would adapt to this combat design. Weapons can be also customized with special attacks. Break down one weapon to get its special attack rune and slot it into another. Enemy diversity is quite good too. Every fight is tooth and nail. It is one of those rare games where defeating someone without taking damage is extremely satisfying, because enemies can be quite difficult to kill cleanly. There are monsters, variety of humans and beasts. Enemy balancing needs some work, because it is clear that some are easy while others can be tougher than bosses even, due to not following stamina rules, and it seems couple tougher mobs have very fast recovery and can attack almost continuously. Slight adjustments can sort this problem easily. Ranged enemies are also a bit of a problem. They tend to ruin the combat dynamic a bit, and it is mostly down to too much tracking. Basically, game is gonna remember your last millisecond of movement so that the projectile can come fast to that exact location. In most cases, dodge is needed when movement itself should be enough to get away from the projectiles depending on the distance traveled. Projectiles need an adjustment. Couple bosses that were available in early access were quite good, aesthetically and mechanically. It is quite an experience battling them. Each boss has some additional attacks that trigger later in the fight to make things more complicated, but overall doesn't change the dynamic that much. Even though bosses are well designed, their movesets seem a bit too limited, or at least the way they are mixed into predictable pattern attacks. After few attempts, bosses can become a bit too easy. I believe that adding a couple more attacks for each boss and mixing them up a bit more would go a long way into making bosses a proper juggernauts without the need to implement cheap mechanics like one or two shot kills. Now to talk about things outside combat. First, have to comment how the world looks. It is fantastically detailed and each area's setting makes sense coming from the previous one. World has bunch of secrets that can be difficult to get to at first, because traversing is difficult at times to spot due to all the details present. For example, going through a specific window might open a whole new area, or finding a beam to balance on might be the thing that leads to a specific key that can open important door. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to notice progression path, as there is usually only one way to go forward, and that can be incredibly difficult to spot at times. Exploring is rewarding, as there are many chests with random loot and important crafting materials, with many resource nodes necessary for upgrading gear and city. Not to mention that if you don't explore, challenging dungeon that early access has can be entirely missed. Exploration part is done nicely because there is enough incentive to do so, as it occasionally grants significant rewards like new NPCs and new content. When it comes to loot, I would definitely increase material nodes and chest rewards, especially weapon and armor shards. Lots of times chest rewards are low and that increases the grind. Don't get me wrong, grind is not so bad, but it can be reduced with no downside to the game and to increase satisfaction through more significant rewards. For example, equipment drops fairly regularly from enemies, so no reason not to allow things like armor and weapon shards to be more frequent. Some chests offer equipment next to materials, which is far more significant. City is the hub where all things outside combat are happening. Daily quests, crafting, merchants and upgrading the city. Daily quests are done through bounty hunts and challenges, like block attacks certain number of times or kill number of enemies with a bow. Adding such things as dailies and weeklies does create a bit of a different dynamic due to at times special enemies appearing that offer more challenging fights. Thankfully, bounties and challenges are optional and you can go through the game without participating in those, but boss types through weekly hunts can drop unique equipment. The problem I have with the game comes from the crafting gameplay loop and inventory limits. Design is quite weak because it utilizes dumb mobile game design where upgrading the city, crafting ingots, planks and threads takes time. What is the point of waiting? Just don't give me the realism talk because it's not explaining anything. 2 minutes for one ingot, what the fuck? I hope they don't plan to utilize microtransactions with full release to reduce the time needed to complete the projects, as some can take a couple hours. How do you create a game so wonderful and different and just to completely fuck up something as simple as crafting? Or even worse, the inventory and storage limits. These two brain-dead decisions make me so goddamn angry. It's like they don't want the game to be the best it can be. Are developers forced today to introduce terrible designs to condition players so they don't have to come up with creative and solid mechanics in future? I swear, there is a consensus amongst modern developers when it comes to inventory and weight design. There must be some kind of reward for whoever can come up with the worst design, cause goddamn these developers would be up there to win it, especially when you add crafting time gating. Inventory and storage limits are very low and it is breaking the dynamic of the game. I can't have many different sets in this game because storage can hold as many items as my inventory. Would love to combine different things to see how it could work, but how can I when necessary resources are gonna take most of the space anyway in storage? I understand the limiting consumable inventory to not make the game too easy, but resources and equipment should be unlimited. No reason not to be. Then developers decided it would be a great idea, due to how they managed to limit inventory and storage, for both special resource to be used to upgrade the inventory space. What? Instead of special equipment, we get fucking +5 resource slots, or more main hand, offhand, ring and tool slots. That should have been there from the start. Without the terrible inventory design, boss resource rewards could offer something new and interesting, and instead they offer progression to intentionally regressed design. Let's move on, cause these things piss me off so much. There are a couple more negatives. For example, there are no rune attack descriptions, which is a baffling oversight, but considering it is early access, not a biggie. They will surely do something about it for the final release. They need to. Frame rate issues do affect the game at this point, but it's better now compared to release date period, so expecting a more stable performance in the final version. Fall damage could be lowered. With monkey-like anatomy, one would assume that falling from heights wouldn't be as bad. With how parkour is done, falling happens frequently. When it comes to visual presentation, I love what I'm seeing. Although background details occasionally go a bit haywire, art style and details are both amazing. Locations look great, characters look great despite the weird monkey-like anatomy, objects are nice. Love the story cutscenes too, animations are great, visual fidelity is overall fantastic. That brings us to conclusion. I remain upbeat about No Rest for the Wicked's high potential. Amazing combat, potentially great story, fun and rewarding gameplay look, amazing visual fidelity, incredible voiceovers, but on the other side terrible designs like time-gated crafting and inventory limitations next to balancing that leaves a lot to be desired. I would rate the early access as good or even great, with the potential for full release to be amazing. I hope they redo some of the stuff, balance and polish a bit more, and that's all it needs to reach the highest echelon. Breath of fresh air for the most part. Let's bring it home, developers.